Okay, guys, good morning. So it is Halloween week, so I can't find a candy bar that says outright laughter, but I would sure like some occasionally. Anyway, but we'll have to settle for a Snicker. I'm always hoping for Butterfingers. And the last year, Jerry Balsam here, I just got her last name down, brought Almond Joy, and she said it was because I brought her so much joy, but I thought it was the almonds because she thought I was nuts. But, but that's our private joke, so don't take it outside this room. But help yourselves to candy. Somebody is going to pass it around, and, just Michelle is, she's useful as well as ornamental. I get it. All right. So I'll just drop these in here. So if you want Butterfingers yourself, there's one at least. So thank you for coming one last time for this year. And we're going to get going. Where's my clicker? Do I have a clicker? Oh, look at that. You guys are so on top of it, except for we lost it all. What's that about? Well, here we are, week 6. Emphasis on week, apparently. Lots of live music today. So mostly we're going to just hear things today and think about what you've learned. What I'm hoping for sure is that those of you who've been here every week will not start. You've just ruined our lives because every time we hear a piece, we're thinking, is that the right chord to go to? And and what is this anacrusic thing? Gary says, I have no idea what you meant, but he doesn't have the background. He does this, and I do the music. So this is Gary's decoration here. It looks. Well, that's the first time the clicker hasn't worked, but I don't know why. Okay. So here we go. So I'm going to review our harp etude because here's what I would you don't have to respond at the end, but maybe you'll raise your hand if you feel like you're listening in a good way let it just steep inside you. Don't think, okay, that's where the phrase is going to the crux and all that. Just the same as always, love your music. And so if it in some way has changed the way you hear it this time versus 6 weeks ago, that would be a possibility. So then we're going to go from there, we're going to go on, and Barbie's going to play for us very soon and often. We love Barbie. And today she's playing these 2 pieces she'll tell you about, and they're just fantastic pieces that she's known for a good long while. And then I'm going to share with you the piece that we were looking at last week, and I'm going to reassure you that you looked at this page, and some of you said it was hard to see because the print gets smaller when you try to put things on a page. Even though it's 12 feet tall, it's still 12 feet away. And so you'd say, well, if I were your student, I would just quit because you have all this stuff you want me to know by next week. No, it's not that at all. It would take 2 years to kind of have a student through theory and music history and styles classes and all kinds of things. But eventually they can do all of what I put on that page because they've learned. And music is a language, and it's fun to learn something each week. So each week you give the students some help that they go back to the practice room and they incorporate that into their playing. And so you always build on each week in a positive way. You don't overstimulate the mind, and you guys are overstimulated, so I think there'll be 2 people left by the end of next year that'll sign up for this course. Okay, so going on, then we're going to look at this beautiful piece Ravel wrote that Barbie's going to play and tell us about, and then we're going to look at another piece by Ravel. Maurice Ravel was about 12 years younger or 11 years younger than Debussy, but they were together the French dudes that really made what we now know impressionistic art and beautiful dance, paintings and literature and architecture possibly even, except Paris is so old that everything is an old building practically. And so all of these things and music, we have that impressionistic period that we're looking at quite a bit today. And then if there's time left over, we'll have some songs. But if time runs out, we'll see. Anyway, so let's listen to the Chopin again. And we talked about it last week a little bit. I'll try to remember to shut the microphone down and just so you'll lose me that way. But we talked last week, you have your melody, and then And then you have these beautiful little notes. Instead of. So we layer it so that you can hear what needs to emerge as the beautiful melody, and the harmonies recede into the texture. And that gives the warmth and the beauty and the shapes, and all of those notes in between the melody notes are not only just there quietly, they also have musicality. And maybe this is louder than this. Does that make sense? So always shaping and layering. And eventually, we've talked about this, our fingers are doing the talking, but our spirit is guiding the fingering, and the music is guiding everything, if that makes some sense. So this is Chopin's beautiful Aeolian harp etude, and we'll review a little bit. Well, I think I want to get there pretty quick because, sorry, can we fuss with that clicker and see maybe if we can get it to work? Well, it's just so hard to keep going back. This is what we talked about a little bit last. Oh, I see. Thank you so much. That'll do it. Oh, perfect. Perfect. You guys are great. Okay, so here we're going to listen. You sit down quietly and behave yourself. It distracts me when you look as nervous as I feel. Okay, so if I can get this to work, that'll be fabulous. So, okay, now this is the Aeolian harp, a model, a replica, if you will, and it's played by the wind. And it's really almost in tune, so if I just go. And Aeolus, or Aeolus, was the god of wind and the island of, maybe it's a fictitious island, is it? Aeolus. Anyway, this is a great thing. We have wind chimes today, right? And so they play outside in the breezes. And this was maybe an idea, it was an actual instrument, 5th century BC in Greece, but this particular model may not even be the shape of what it was. So that's that idea, and here's a performance you can listen to at home, quite beautiful. Lovely person who played at the end of a concerto, no doubt, because there's the orchestra sitting there. And I wanted to share with you okay, we'll go back here. So just let it be inside you, the beauty of this piece. So raise your hand if you like this piece. I know. So beautiful. Can you hear, in a way, the wind playing the strings? It's just such a floating, flowing, beautiful sound, and the harmonies emanate from the breezes, if you will. And Chopin understood the harmonic language and made chords flow into each other. So there's something we haven't talked about, but let me get to it through these screens, and it's going to be the word rubato, and it comes from an Italian word, rubare. Rubare means to rob. So you probably notice sometimes I'm increasing the tempo because the music is increasing in intensity and build-up. Maybe it's building to a high point, and then there are places where you relax the tempo because it's melting into the next harmony, and so you do something that Chopin would indicate, rubato, to rob from one place and give it back someplace else. So it's always balancing out. So here we have a concert coming up in a week from Friday. There's many other concerts here. Just look at the bulletin board after class and see what's happening. This afternoon at 2 o'clock at Holy Spirit Church, one of our students here, of Nancy Cooper, organist, is going to play his upper divisional program in Holy Spirit Church. It's free. First you pray that you'd be quiet and be nice, and then after you get an answer for that prayer, then you go and sit and listen this afternoon at 2 o'clock. But this will be this Friday, or a week from Friday, excuse me. And then it's, where is it taking place? I can't tell you that I remember. If it's not here, it's, St. Francis, at St. Francis. So today, you get to go to church twice, once here at Holy Spirit. Next week, you get to go to St. Francis if you didn't make it for services over the weekend. Okay, so this is a really wonderful guy. I'm learning how to do this a little bit, so maybe I can get it there, but I guess I can't, so I forget that little part. Will I get back to that screen? Anyway, you're going to meet this kid that isn't a kid really at all, but he's here. His name is Jordan Nyman. He lives in Kalispell. Great guy. I don't think he'd mind my telling that he was adopted by a family up in Kalispell, and this happens sometimes. They weren't having their child that they thought they would have in their marriage, so they went to Korea and got this wonderful kid when he was a young child, and he's in the picture down here. You can't necessarily see, but you will meet him if you go to the concert. So he came to this country and has been here in Kalispell ever since, and his family loves him and he loves them, and they are family, and so they all went fishing in Alaska this past summer. And Homer, Alaska is out on the coast, and they just, well, let's go deep sea fishing for a couple hours. And here's what they caught. Now, these really outdo, what is it they fish for up in Flathead Lake that they're trying to, the Mackinaw, and these are the Pacific halibut, right? And there's Jordan right there, and there's his dad. And Jordan caught that fish, so I don't know why Dad gets to stand behind that fish. And all you had to do was pay. It happened, they just happened to be there the weekend. You could pay $10, and you were eligible to catch the longest fish. You can't say the heaviest, because a long fish may weigh more or less than the next one, and it's too hard to weigh. So, but they can measure the length quickly. So this was the longest fish caught by Jordan. So you see, he can do more than just play the piano. And he won $5,000. So anyway, so now he doesn't have to get paid to do anything else because he's set for at least a week. And so this is what's interesting, is that there was one other fish caught in that, not at that dock, but in that bay that weekend that was 2 inches longer than this fish, but who's counting? But the guy didn't pay $10, so he was ineligible to win. You have to pay to win. Pay to play, it's called. Okay, so that's Jordan. You're going to meet him. So that's just a fun thing, because he was just at our state conference over at the wonderful Paramount Hot Springs, where we all just went soaking and forgot we were supposed to meet and have important meetings. So here's the word rubato. And we've been talking about all kinds of things, more than even this. We have phrasing and layering and harmonic meaning, and the harmonic meaning leads to the taking a little bit of time to nestle and caress or nurture that harmony, or blend into it or melt into it. And so this is kind of what we've been talking about in several weeks now in different ways. And so the phrases, so raise your hand just if it felt the same as 6 weeks ago listening, or has it changed in some way that you hear more things? Yeah, you hear more things. You can kind of feel it, but I hope those things don't distract you. Just know that you know more and enjoy the music at increasingly informed levels. And it's such a beautiful language, and we all that went to college to learn this, learn the language increasingly ourselves each week. Oops, I'm going to move to the, oh, come on, that's interesting. I know. And I'm going to try to repeat it. If you guys have a comment, anybody want to make a comment while I'm finding my way through this next? Yeah.
As pianists age, what about your hand health? It seems to me you're getting an awful lot of exercise every day on those fingers, but do you have to do anything in particular to maintain that strength in your hands? Do people get carpal tunnel when playing the piano?
Oh, okay, she's asking about hand health and finger health and what do we have to do, and carpal tunnel, which can happen. Carpal tunnel should happen only if we're doing something wrong technically. Yeah. They say repetitive stress, but I studied for years in New York City with a great teacher who understood that it's simply when you do things that are, what's the word, against the technique or against the music even. So if I'm practicing, we keep our fingers supple by playing, right? So if that's a huge part of it. And you don't always subdue the notes that are to be quiet. Everything can be helpful, and you sort of go over it 20 times, right? I probably heard this piece 7,000 times in my lifetime, but it's not the only piece. It's just you get everything working. And I was telling you guys, and it's a great question about how our hands stay healthy. Barbie and I are both blessed by not having arthritis, nodules and things, which you don't really get a choice about, right? So my mom at age 98, her hands looked great, but she still couldn't play the piano because she never did. So hand health didn't translate. You've had great blessings that way, right?
Playing the piano doesn't ever cause any problems with your hand. In fact, it probably solves lots of problems if you don't ever get exercise with your hands. But other things, like rheumatoid arthritis or certain medical situations might give you some problems. But thank God, both Steve and I still have our techniques, and our fingers are healthy, and we're very grateful for that.
It's true. It's a gift. Any other thoughts? And just did that answer your thought? Yeah.
Just a quick comment, as you know, Schumann did some incorrect hand exercises and
That's right.
destroyed his ability to be a concert pianist.
That's right, and some pianists have over-practiced. I know Lang Lang did, and Gary Graffman. There are stories that they had problems because they overworked their fingers, but then they recovered, in most cases.
Let me spin on that and say that I just read a great article in the world of robotics. They call it the hand problem. They just can't get the hand. It's far too subtle and capable and magnificent.
When you get home, do this little fun thing. Take 2 pencil points and maybe do it to somebody else with their eyes closed, and you take the 2 pencil points, and that sharp lead is better, and you can feel the prick, but up here you'll think it's only 1 pencil. You'll think it's just 1 pencil. You'll think it's just 1 pencil. And you're going along 1 pencil, 1 pencil. That's all you're doing. Maybe 2, and when you get to the fingertip, they instantly know it's 2 pencils because of all the nerve endings. Does that make sense? It's such a wonderfully intricate system that we have in our bodies. And just the quickest lesson in what I learned about improper technique on the keyboard and why it causes injury. So wiggle your index finger at the second knuckle back, because you can't really control the first knuckle as a separate movement. And so the physiological rule explained to me by a physical therapy professor and practitioner here at the university years and years ago. And so if you isolate a movement somewhere between the spine and the end of your fingernail, this is the first possibility. And so for every joint of mobility, there's a joint, and Herb Swick will help us with this if we need. Every joint of mobility, there's a joint of stability, kind of the fulcrum or the corner. And so when you do this movement by itself, then this knuckle here is the fixation point, the fixed point, and then everything from there to your shoulders kind of locked up, not involved. So then if you wiggle from here, then your wrist becomes the fulcrum, if you will. And then that means that everything from the wrist back is kind of cut off. So that's sort of backwards playing. So when I had exercises at the conservatory that my teacher wanted me to do called finger independence exercises, I started to hurt. And at the time, the teacher was maybe too young to realize that it was going to eventually cause injury if I continued, because I was doing called finger isolation exercises. But for centuries, they thought it was cool to do these finger isolation exercises, and Schumann was trying to do them and wrecked his fourth finger of whichever hand. I'm not sure. The fourth finger is the ring finger. Does that make a little bit of sense? It's just interesting. So we know piano health is where it emanates from the spine and the torso, just like you wouldn't only dribble a basketball from the wrist. Everything is working, right? Everything is free. So not. Everything tightens up. Does that make sense a little bit? So great question. But musically, are you feeling like you're still receiving the music even if you know some other things about it? And that should never change. You should only be adding to your pleasure and not getting caught up in, I don't really understand that, so I shouldn't listen to music. So going on, we're going to hear Barbie now play beautifully for us this wonderful set of pieces by Franz Liszt. And you're going to listen at home, so I'm just putting them on for you that have access to your PowerPoints through the Molly site. Yes, is there anything you want to tell us first, a little bit?
Yes.
Here. You do that, I'll get this.
We're continuing with the same nature theme. You had the Aeolian harp etude where the wind sort of made the sound come out. Now we're going to do forest murmurs or Waldstrau. How do you pronounce it?
Waldesrauschen.
Yeah, that means forest murmurs. So you can listen to the forest rustling in the trees and think of the beautiful colors turning now that it's fall. And that's the main point of forest murmurs. These are two concert etudes composed in 1863 by Franz Liszt. And the second one is called Gnomenreigen, Dance of the Gnomes, and I have my own particular interpretation of it. Forest murmurs is nature. It's the beautiful landscape and the trees and the bushes and the flowers.
And the wind.
And the wind.
The breezes.
Yeah. Gnomenreigen is Dance of the Gnomes, but I interpret that as meaning people. That's all the population scurrying around with their craziness and I mean, think of 1863, what was going on in the world at that time. I mean, in America, for instance. There was a lot of tumult and craziness going on. And so when you think of Gnomenreigen, think of just people all over the place. Just sort of going
Scurrying
crazy.
in a way. Kind of scurrying.
So these are two concert etudes. I'll play them back to back. Okay.
Mhm.
That's Dance of the Gnomes, or as I think of it, Dance of the Crazy People.
Before Barbie plays this, just wait 1 second. Back on. There. So it's important and helpful maybe to know that Chopin did not call his piece the Aeolian harp. In fact, Schumann looked at the piece and said, oh, this sounds like a harp, and, and let's just call it a wind harp. And so, but Liszt was of a different mind, and almost every piece that Liszt wrote had some kind of title or name, and it's called, if you're taking notes, it's called program music, music with a story, you could say. But Chopin wasn't intending a story, and when we have compositions that are not storied, then that's called absolute music. It's just music. And if somebody names it, or you would think of a story while you're playing it, that's kind of private, or even an accolade or some kind of compliment to what the music seems to evoke. But these two pieces by Liszt have his titles, and that was really meant to be a forest, leaves murmuring in the breezes, and just a landscape of sorts. And then the Dance of the Gnomes is fictitious, because maybe the elves or the gnomes don't really exist, but it's a fun story nonetheless.
And also, we were talking about the clashing of two notes together. Those are the first notes of Gnomenreich, of Dance of the Gnomes. But it actually is this chord. But he adds, and he makes them into grace notes. And that's how it starts. So
Kind of
he puts
impish.
two clashing notes together, but in the form of what we call a grace note, which is when you play it really, really close together, but two notes really close together.
On behalf of Barbie, thank you so much. So that's music with a story, music, a program, if you will. Program music then means a storied piece, and another name for all of these pieces, the absolute music pieces and the program music in this time, say from the late Beethoven through Chopin, through Schumann, Mendelssohn, names you've heard, music you've heard. Barbie played the Mendelssohn variations for you. All these pieces, in many of them, when they're one complete piece, it's called a character piece because it has a character. And the character might be impish, it might be smooth and flowing, it might be evocative of a lake or a landscape or something. But absolute music isn't intended to have the story, and yet it has a character. Just like we talked about in Baroque, where Bach, every piece had one character, which was called an affect or an emotion. So these are all sort of just terms. Don't worry about them if they're mulling around in your brain and you remember, oh yeah, we talked about that 6 weeks ago. That's fine. But just you're gathering, you're garnering little pieces of information that are helpful. So I'm going to now share with you a little more about the piece we looked at last week, and it was sort of daunting to stare at it, if you will, on the screen here. And here's Rachmaninoff playing the Nomenreich, and it might be just fun to hear the very beginning of it, because we had a full course on Rachmaninoff 2 years ago. And this is him, his playing. Yeah, a little bit louder, thank you. But there was no video at the time, right? They took these little 8mm or whatever films, but not at concerts. So hopefully some of you gone back into the PowerPoints. Yeah, a little. Thank you for doing that, because that's in effect our readings. Because I try to put the information on the PowerPoint and more than we can talk about, so that you have a chance to review or to renew or to learn even more the pieces and about the pieces and about music. Now this is a score from the Middle Ages, if you will, maybe late, moving into Renaissance, and that was the notation of the time, and I have no idea of how to read this, so you guys are saying, well, I don't know how to read today's notation. I have the same feeling about this, but I can appreciate it, and I especially can appreciate that they didn't have copy machines, right? So everything was handwritten, everything. And so I decided one good reason they had monks in the monasteries is they needed copyists. We don't care what you believe, but you're gonna have this done before we have breakfast. And so that was kind of what they did, and music of the Middle Ages. And so we're gonna hear some little examples. This, before I play it, I decided, this is a painting, almost looks like Rembrandt, but I don't know. It has some of that quality, dark brownish colors. And I decided the guy on the right over there looks a little somber because he failed the Santa Claus audition at the mall. And so these are pretty serious looking guys, and I decided, I don't know, maybe that, I don't know, I guess it'd be hard to hold a smile for the time that it took to paint those pictures, or paintings or portraits, if you will. But this is Gregorian chant, and just listen a little bit because it factors into the piece I'm going to share with you a little bit. So it's quite beautiful, and you can just be soothed by it. But it was a religious musical expression of the text that became liturgy, if you will, that became every week you would say, Lord have mercy, Christ have mercy, whatever. If your faith is Jewish, you have different, and Jewish people long since had their own cantors and the singing of a service. And so music unites people, and music organizes, and music became, this is called monody, like monochromatic means only, like black and white pictures are different from color photography. So monody, it means single issue notes that are just a melody. There's an organ in the background kind of supplying underneath some underpinnings, but not accompanying yet. And so this was called Gregorian chant. Pope Gregory believed in this, and there were all kinds of things, but it factors so much into the music of Bach and the music of Chopin and the music of Liszt and the music of Debussy, everybody. And so then the next interval that happened, and Barbie's going to come over here, and we're going to take a moment. You're going to imagine you're all standing up here. Barbie, come on up to the piano, and she's going to repeat, let's see, you're not playing, you're just pounding. Let's do maybe that note. But don't keep, okay, quiet now, I'll tell you when. I gotta find the string. Okay, where, play. There it is. I'm finding, there it is. So if you touch a string, okay, don't play for the moment. If you touch stop, don't keep playing. Behave yourself, Barbie. Okay, so so when you have a violin, you can touch the string in different places and you get what are called harmonics. And this is natural harmony. So play that now. Okay, now play the G above it. So it's not the C. So that note is hidden in the string. And then if I go a different place, no, play it there. Up an octave. So the point is all these harmonics are notes hidden inside a string. Pythagoras knew this in the 6th century BC, and they understood that harmony comes out of natural forces. It's not an invention. And so this, or those are hidden inside that low string. And so the first order of notes that are hidden or within are the interval of a C to a G, or up here on the, you don't have to read this notation, but and it might be in a certain rhythm, and that's let's call it early harmony. It's kind of the first hint of utilizing what is already within the world of music, natural sound. Mm-hmm. Exactly. So these intervals are natural, and that's early harmony. So from one single note, it went to two notes that harmonize with each other, and it's more interesting. And then that developed into music that has three notes. Ooh, just give me a second. Where'd my clicker go? And so the three-note harmonies, they discovered certain things about them. So you listen a little bit. First, it starts out with just one single note. This is like 1420 or something like that. Early 1400s, 15th century. add some harmonic notes. So already harmonies are developing. This is the early 1400s, and think of the Bach that you heard the first day with Barbie playing one of the Bach preludes and fugues, and that was 300 years later. So harmony is not just suddenly happening, it's evolving, and it's very natural. And beautifully, they figured out that rather than going like, they might go, let's see, and those are the same harmonies, but they're kind of close together, and these are, and you don't have to know this, but that's the same chord, but it's a little more open. And they found out the ear preferred to hear that than everything squished together. Or there's even one more choice. And that's the same. And gives you a hint of things that you study in music theory, and then you learn composition, and you shouldn't put the notes that squished together quality, but you spread them out a little bit. And that's enough, hopefully, to just appreciate that in the Debussy prelude I'm going to now share with you, that at the end, there's this beautiful harmony. And because the bottom note is not the main note of the chord, it's called false bass. Faux bourdon is the French. And here's the sorry. So now the bottom note is not the main note. It's a secondary note. I'm sorry if that doesn't clarify it quite, but this spread out version. So the point is that Debussy's using something from 1400 in his piece that he wrote in 1913 or 1912, 500 years later. So it endures, it's forever in music. And this idea that I showed you where and Debussy uses it as I mean, it's really low and growly in a way, but this piece is called the audience of the people that are witnessing the moonlight from their terrace, from their balcony, if you will, or it's a view of, and not just a view of the moon, but a contemplation of eternity, in a way, in my world. The piece was not meant to be a story about the moonlight. It's a title that maybe the piece evokes thoughts of things like the moonlight. So So just for fun, because I say you can make up your own story with a piece of music if it kind of fits, not to be childish about it or just immature about it, but to honor the music. So if this is the moon, what's the distance between the moon and the Earth? How many thousand miles approximately? We say 240,000 miles to the moon. So this is the Earth, and here's the moonlight. And in between, there's lots of So something foundational, something ethereal, something way up in the heavens, and then at the very end, maybe the moon is setting. So, and here's the moon up here, and here's the moon is pretty much set. So now you're starting to see a million stars. And it's coming to an end. There's that you just heard Barbie play, the half step or the impish notes, but now they're and the moon has set, and it's now all is quiet. So this is an incredibly gorgeous piece with a mysterious layer. So there's all kind of wonderful things going on, but you just get to enjoy that the music has substance and organization and understanding of a composer who understands all these harmonies of centuries old, things that reinvent themselves through each style and each composer. So where did my little clicker go here? And so before I play it through for you, there's the Fulberdon place that I played where the harmonies go back 500 years. And then here's your little starlight place at the end. And here's our French impressionistic thoughts that we talked about. Art is so integrated with music. Dance is integrated with music. Music always evokes many things. And here's the composer in portraits. And here's the piece. And then last week I showed you, and you all went, I think I'll just leave now. When I showed you this is the trip inside Debussy's mind. And it's not like I've spent hours doing this. It's normal for a student who's had 2 years of music theory and music history and music appreciation to know these things. And so they go, oh, look at those half steps up there, and look at that beautiful harmony there, and all these things. And they can identify what they are. And it actually informs their playing, really, because they understand, just like you read a story to a little group of kids, and you're reading it for the first time, and you don't say, once upon a time there was a... No, you read it, already you're interpreting, once upon a time. And the kids are rapt with attention. You've never even seen the story, but because you understand the language and the meaning, you share that through your reading. So we are doing that when we read music, and this is a little more enlarged version. So here's a certain kind of chord, a B diminished. This is actually a minor major seventh chord, and here's a whole bunch of, all the pink chords are related to each other. These little ziggy-zaggies up here are not dinosaur spines, but they're little half steps. But then there's another different set of notes that aren't half steps. And so all of that's going on. But it's beautiful because it's so wonderfully conceived, written, composed, and understood. Here's Van Cliburn that I knew when I was a kid. He was just a few years older than I. I got to hear him in Sioux City, Iowa, and I went backstage. He was so kind to me when I mispronounced Tchaikovsky. I probably said Tchaikovsky. and he, what did you say? He was trying to get me to say it the right way, and I was like, well, I better go home and review my list of composers. So this is the piece we'll go through now. And there's that little mystery floating. So you can listen to that in your own time at home, but you look at the size of the audience there, and so you guys got to do a better job of coming to these classes, because look, they were all there. Anyway, so I will play this for you, and just enjoy and internalize whatever you can and feel as you listen. But don't overly analyze it, just appreciate it. Maybe turn the sound down a little bit. I guess I hear a hum, but it doesn't really matter. The music will ride it. you heard at the end then what's called the false bass, or and he adds something with the starlight maybe. And as the moon fades, the stars emerge, possibly. And just, again, it's not the idea that Debussy was depicting, but his music always evokes, and we receive the evocation or the spirit or the character of the music. So that is a little bit of that piece. And then we're going to move on here to a colleague and friend, actually, of Debussy, a classmate of sorts, 10 or 11 years younger, was not this guy playing the piano, but Maurice Ravel. And they are colleagues in France. And so Barbie's going to share with us this gorgeous piece by Ravel, and it'll sound, this sound you can turn up a little bit again. I think you can leave it on, it's fine. I think this is recorded in a studio where there's a bird singing outside. Anyway, that's for you at home. So, Barbie, we can do this piece, and you can tell a little bit if you wish.
Okay.
Here you go.
Maurice Ravel wrote a piece that has three parts to it, the first of which is Ondine, which is derived from the Latin word for lake or wave, like little riplets in the water. Unda, U-N-D-A, is the root, the Latin root of Ondine. Ondine is a spirit, and it can be a ripple in the water. It's something, a spirit that's in the water that's not in human form. And there's poems to go with these three. This is called Gaspard de la Nuit. Gaspard is the poet, and he wrote three poems, and each of the poems is a piece of music that Ravel wrote. And they're not meant to be read in performance, but I'll give you a little idea. Undine is a water spirit that's saying, listen, listen, come and be with me. Come into the lake and be my husband, because the legend has it that if she marries, she gets a soul. She becomes human. But if he is not faithful to her, she dies. So she's saying, listen, listen, it is Undine who brushes the diamond panes of your window. The poet's up inside his room, and the water from the lake is coming on his window. He's looking out, and he sees the lake, and he sees the spirits coming on his window. So there must be some wind in there somewhere, blowing the water up. It says, each wave is a water sprite swimming in the current. Every current is a path which winds toward my palace. Her palace is the water. And my palace is built of flowing liquid at the bottom of the lake, within the triangle of earth, air, and fire. Listen, listen, blah, blah, blah. So she begged me to put her ring on my finger to become the husband of a water sprite, visit her palace, and to become the king of the lakes. But guess what? Did he say yes? No. He said no. And at the very end, you'll hear just a few notes. That's the poet saying no. And then as I told her I loved a mortal, sulky and pouting, she shed a few tears. Then bursting out laughing, she disappeared in a shower of clear water droplets which ran down my blue windows. That's the story that goes with this piece. Okay. Oh, can you turn for me?
Yes. Okay.
And Steve and I have both worked on this piece. It's one of the hardest pieces. It truly is. All right, well, we'll do the best we can. and then she went right back into the water. That's where she belongs.
Great.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you so much. Well, maybe. We'll see. So we're approaching the end of our time together for this year. And here I was a 5-year-old. Some think I haven't grown up very much. But there we are. So that was in Iowa. Our farm was in South Dakota. My dad's first cousins were out in Iowa, so we made the 8-hour trip across the state to northeastern Iowa. And they had this old junker piano, but that's what we had on the farm in South Dakota, so I was used to that. And of course they didn't have a bench, just a chair, so I'm reaching for the top of the Eiffel Tower there. But that was kind of how it all begins, right, for every kid that ends up doing music. So there we are. And I didn't have Barbie's baby picture, but this is just before she returned to Montana. Her sister Judy took a picture.
Yeah, that's right, Judy took that picture.
In the apartment in Westchester?
Westchester, Eastchester, which is in Westchester, near Scarsdale train station.
Anyway, so there's a beautiful picture of Barbie, and this is commencement, means you go forward from here and you commence, and that's why we don't call it necessarily graduation. So thanks for bearing with us all through this time, and beautiful flowers each week. Thank you, Gary, and gardens, whatnot, and hopefully we'll see you next year. And this is kind of, I'll just leave that on the screen. You kind of know this when I play sometimes. It's so hard to go from talking about the piece. It's sort of like saying, and here's how a truck works, and now we're going to go for a drive, and you're like managing all these gears. So I don't feel badly about it. I just am trying to, sometimes it works really well and sometimes less well. So I'm going to a piece that I have memorized, and I love this piece. It's from a set by the same composer that Barbie just played beautifully, this great Undine, which is just at the top of the charts. So that's a great exposure to that piece. So this is a very Spanish-flavored piece by the same composer, Maurice Ravel. He was born on the I don't know how to call it, but it's a southwest corner of France on the English Channel side. So he was on the border, kind of Spain, right next to Spain. So he had a Spanish influence in his life, even though he was a French composer. And so you'll hear this kind of Spanish rhythm. If memory holds, I'm going to play it for you from memory. And if it doesn't, we'll go to the Gershwin. So this, either way, but this is such a great piece, and he just understood Spanish flavor, Spanish feel. So Alborada is a serenade, and it's a particular kind of serenade that a man might sing in the streets with his guitar below the window of his hopeful beloved, kind of. So it's a morning serenade, and he hopes by being a good musician, it's probably the other side of Undine. It's the guy trying to entice the girl from her bedroom window to come out and see in the early morning hours and hear his beautiful. And so that vocalization that comes from Arabia, actually, through the Moorish influence across the Straits of Gibraltar. So let your mind enjoy this piece. I guess I didn't have the microphone on, sorry. So you're supposed to hear there the guitar pick, right? So they do the thing on the string, right? So that's one thing. And then the serenade and all that Spanish dance and the flamenco, maybe, possibly, but it's just such beautiful music. In a way contrasting, but coming out of the same composer and the same. Yes. Some called him the Swiss watchmaker because every note is fit like a gear to all the other notes. So it's great music. I think we're at a close here. 10:29. Wow, that's pretty good. So I will play the Gershwin for you next year. So in the meantime, any quick thought, comments? I'll try to repeat if it can't be heard. Just, did you learn something, or is it, yeah. She says she can't believe how much she learned. And of course, my brother used to say, the more you learn, the more you know, but the more you know, the more you forget. And then the more you forget, the less you know, so why study? That was my brother figuring out his life, but he became a great engineer. So thank you so much for being here with us and with the music, and to our helpers, Michelle and Terry, who always has to race off to help the next class get going. Thank you so much. We'll see you in a year. Come again.